Hello guys, hope you all are doing well. I'm Alex Bryson from Alex Productions and I am here to help you with things like clean code, application architecture, security, scalability, tips and tricks and much more. And if that sounds interesting to you, then consider subscribing to the channel. So today is very special day. First, I welcome you to this course. This course is about mastering basics of Angular, NgRx, PWA, and Firebase. This course will gonna teach you about basics of Angular architecture with PWA app, how to implement NgRx in our Angular application, and getting started with Firebase. I will be giving away two t-shirts with the channel logo to two lucky winners at the end of this course, and the winner will be announced at live stream 25 days after the video has been released. So definitely stick till the end of this video and you might get a chance to win the t-shirt. We will discuss about it later on this video. This course is a bit long, so definitely grab some coffee and snack and enjoy the video. You will definitely learn something new in this course. All I can say now is it will worth your time. This course contains authentication, routing, route guarding, NgRx for state management, external database, in this case it is Firestore, and Firebase hosting to host our PWA app. And there are a lot more things we will learn all about it along the way. So without further ado, let's move to the course. First, let me show you what we are building in this course. Link to this app is in the description. You can go to the link and check it yourself. This is basically a PWA to-do app. The application features authentication, routing, and all CRUD operation with Firestore. You can create, read, update, and delete data from Firestore. But here reading is a bit interesting. We will listen to the real-time changes to the Firestore. As you can see, if I open this app with Chrome and try to access the to-do page, I am routed to the login page because I am not signed in. And if I am signed in and then try to access auth page again, I am routed back to to-dos page, which makes sense, right? As PWA can be installed on mobile devices, this is a bonus you can say. I will also show you how to set the theme dynamically by using Tailwind CSS. And yes, you heard that right. We will be using Tailwind CSS in this course. And if you are excited, then definitely like this video and let's start building from the scratch. Make sure you have the latest Node.js and Angular CLI installed on your system. After that, open your terminal and create a new project with ngNew command and provide the name whatever you like. I'll provide PWA masterclass. You can specify yes here for strict type checking, as this is just a basic. I don't want to ruin your life by strict checks. But if you are on real project, then definitely turn it on. We are going to work with routing. Setting this to yes will generate a router configuration file for us, but we will also take a look on creating the file ourselves. So set it to yes. As we are going to work with Tailwind CSS, it is a good option to choose a CSS in general as it provides more flexibility. So I will select a CSS here. With that done, now wait for it to install. This may take few minutes to complete, so wait for it to complete. After the completion of download, cd into that project and open VS Code or any text editor you like. And let me know if you are using VS Code in the comment section down below, as I was planning to make a video on VS Code, like what theme, font or extension I use. If you are into that sort of thing, then definitely subscribe to the channel. First, let me zoom in a little bit. We will be installing all the packages we need in this project, and in the meantime I'll be explaining some of the basic of Angular architecture and how NgRx fits in between the components and the services, and also something about PWA and Firebase. You see that component? It is the building block of Angular application. Every Angular application has at least one component, the root component, that connects a component hierarchy with the DOM. Each component defines a class that contains application data and logic and is associated with an HTML template that defines a view to be displayed in a target environment. If we provide the data like the list of text of to do to HTML template from the component using some Angular directive like ng4 to display the list, then it is called template binding. And the things like button click and mouse events are sent to the component class, which is called event binding. The data from external sources arrive to the component via services, which is injected to the component. Every event that component receives via event binding can dispatch an action describing what happened and what to do to the reducer. Its reducer will change the state of the application and save the current state to the store. If an action description requires external sources, then it's Effects' job to call the service, which further call the external sources to get the data. And Effects also produces another action, provide the data as the payload of the action. Reducer takes the action and data and change the state and save it to the store. It's selectors who select the data from store and provide it to the component, and the component passes it to the template to be displayed using template binding. Hope this is making sense to you. As I told you, NgRx sits in between the component and the services class. This arrangement is helpful in many ways, as it allows unidirectional flow of the data, and managing state is way more simpler when we use NgRx, but it comes with a cost. You have to do some extra things like creating action, effects, reducer, and selectors. Also, this cost is nothing when it comes to building larger application with hundreds of things happening. NgRx also comes with code generation library called NgRx schematics. Using this, we will upload some of the work to the code generation. As you can see in the diagram, if required, NgRx can be in between of every component and their respective service class. This to-do application might seem simple to you, but if you see the internal component architecture, you will be amazed to see how complex it is. This is because I have made this app complex so that you can understand the most out of it. I will give you an example. As you saw in the preview, if the user clicks on sign in with Google button, That click event which binds to the component that generates an action, which require Firebase to sign in the user and get the credential. The action produced by the component is dispatched to the reducer, and in the meantime, Effects also looks for this specific action to be dispatched, as this action required external call to Firebase Authentication service. So when the action is dispatched, effect get triggered and call the service class. The service class calls the Firebase Authentication service to sign in the user and get the token. If everything was good, then Firebase will return an Firebase user object containing the user credential. The service will pass this to effect, and effect then dispatch another action saying the user is authenticated and here is his credential. Reducer will take this information and compute the new state and save it to the store. Then after that, you will be routed to the to-do page where your profile picture, name and email are displayed. This is because we use selector to select the data from the store and provide it to the component and then displayed it in template using template binding. Hope you are getting this. If you are not getting it right now, don't worry. We will understand it till the end of this video. And feel free to comment in down the section if you are feeling stuck. I think we have finished installing all the packages. Now run the development server with ngserve command or ng space s and wait for this to compile our project. And in the meantime, let's go to appcomponent.html file. Eventually, we will delete all this content, but first, let's check if the compilation has completed. It seems it has completed. Now let's open the browser and go to localhost and port number 4200, or you can control click this link. This will open your default browser. As you can see, the project is working fine, no error till now, which is fine. Let's now minimize it and delete all the content of appcomponent.html file. First, we will check if the Tailwind CSS is working or not. This is just to check. We will write some markup and apply the Tailwind classes. And we will apply Tailwind classes like flex, justify, center, and all those things. And save the file and open the browser to see the changes. As you can see, the Tailwind CSS is working fine. Now minimize the browser, as this component will be the container for all the routes in our application. This container will only contain the router outlet directive and also remove all the markup we just wrote. With that done, now open a new terminal within your integrated terminal VS Code, and now we will use Angular CLI to generate the component. Type the command ngRx pages/home -f -n and then app. I want to create home component inside the pages folder. If you want to nest a component deep inside some folder, then write the path to that point, considering that you are inside the app folder. This command will create a folder called pages and create the home component inside it. And -m option will register this component to app module. This home component will be our home page for the application. Now let's configure the route for our application. Go to app routing module ts file. This file is generated when you select ts while creating the project. Here you can see an empty routes array. We will provide a route object here. By specifying path will be an empty string. Empty path route configuration can be used to instantiate components that do not consume any URL segments. And component provide the home component that we just created. Now let's open the browser and see if it works. You will see home works written. That means we have successfully configured the root path. That's the path was assigned with the empty string. Use this when you don't want any URL segment but still want to load the component via URL. Now we will create two new modules, one for authentication and other one for to-dos. Open your terminal within VS Code and type the command ngRm modules/auth. Remember when we created home component, we use -m option to register it to the root app module. Now we will create our own module. As we placed home component inside pages folder, we will create auth module inside modules folder. This will help in good project structure. Similarly, we will also create modules inside modules folder. Creating modules will create their own folder. We have to create auth and to do module, but they are in their own respective folder, like modules, auth, after that auth.module.ts. With that done, we will handle authentication first and then we will move to to-dos module. We will create yet another component for our login page. As before, run the command ngRx module/auth/pages/login with -m option and provide the module name auth. As you saw, this time we will create the component inside the auth module and pages folder, and the name of the component will be login component, and it will be registered to auth module we created. We will be also creating two router guards, but we will deal with that later. As you saw in the preview, if I was not signed in, I was not able to access the to-do page. Well, this is what preventing me from doing so. Create the router guard by running the command ngguard module/auth/guard/signed in. There are 4 types of interfaces. You can go crazy with this, but I will keep it simple. We will just need can activate interface, as this return a boolean or a route based on the condition. The condition we will use is if the user is authenticated, then activate this route. and if the user is not authenticated, then route the user to the sign-in page. We will also create another route guard with the name signed out, but this will do just opposite of the first one. If the user is signed in, then do not activate and route back the user to to-dos page. As you can see, the folder structure is exactly the same as I have explained. Now move on to auth module.ts file, and as I have told you, the login component is registered here. Now let's define some route, and this is how you create your own routing. First, create a constant routes of type routes. It will be an array of route objects. Initialize it with the route object, same as we did in app module file. Provide the path with empty string. Why here? Because we will register this module on app module routing as feature module with the path auth. So we don't want any extra URL segment, but still we want to load this component. This is why we will provide the empty string here, and also provide the component as login component. This component will be shown when the user hits localhost 4200/auth route. If we have provided something other than empty string in this path, then the user has to go to localhost 4200/auth and slash something to access this component, and we have provided the route module in the imports array in NgModule decorator. Provide route module dot for child method and pass the routes content we just created. This is how we register router module in any module. With that done, now move on to approuting.module.ts file. We will register our auth module as a feature module here. Add another route object in route constant as before. As I told you, here we will provide the path with the string auth. Which means any route starts with auth, this module will be loaded, and the routes defined in this module will be instantiated. Here it will instantiate login component we defined in the auth module. And next we will use load children property and pass the arrow function, returning an import function which loads the feature module. So we will pass the module location using then block we will load the module. Then block provide with the variable which has access to auth module class, and this is how we register a module as a feature module. Similarly, we will also register todo module with todo as a path, and the process is same. Now if we go to the browser and go to /auth path, we can see that login component has been loaded. This is what I explained before. Let me zoom in a little bit. And if we go back to slash route, we will see the home component again. By seeing this, we can confirm that our routes are working perfectly. And with that done, we will work on our login component. But before that, let me restart the VS Code because there is some weird behavior with Tailwind CSS extension. It doesn't work properly at the time of installing Tailwind CSS package. For making it that to work, just restart the VS Code and it will get the Tailwind CSS config.js file and start working. I have forgot to install one package before. It is NgRx schematics package. Remember I told you about NgRx code generation tool? Well, this package is exactly for that. Now run the command ng add at ngrx slash schematics at latest. It will ask for the setting it to default schematics. Just say yes, as we are going to work with NgRx after some time, and you will be amazed how easy it makes to create actions, effects, reducer, and selectors. Now after that, run the development server by running the command ng space s. We will design the home page at the last of this video. For now, let's move on to login component.html file. As this is just styling of HTML, I will fast forward this section and talk to you normally. If you are curious about that code suggestion in the classes, then I am using Tailwind CSS IntelliSense extension by Brad Corners. It is a great extension. It helps me styling HTML quickly. If you are using Tailwind CSS in your projects, then I highly recommend using this extension. Try it and you'll know what I'm talking about. We will not use the traditional email password login here, as that will take more time to style. We will be using something which will provide great user experience. We will use only one button to sign the user with Google Auth signing method. And from this point, the browser will be on the side of the screen. And here's the tip. The main section is not centering vertically because when we use h full for height, it is equivalent to using height 100%, which means it will occupy 100% of its parent height. But here we are not specifying the parent height to some value. So we will wrap the router outlet component with div and give it a height of h screen, which is equivalent to height 100 vh, which is 100% of the viewport height. In Angular, instead of using hrefs, we use router links. as this will not reload the page but still navigate to the new page. But using href will navigate to the new URL but also reloading the whole page. By that I mean it will request the HTML, CSS and JavaScript file from the server. Here it will request from development server. For now, clicking on the button will result in navigation to to-do page. So let's try it in a browser. When we click it, we are navigated to the route, but we don't see anything here. This is because we haven't specified any routes in our to-do module file. So let's first create some component. So open your terminal and create a to-do main component inside page folder within to-do module folder. This will be container for everything within the to-do module. Run the command ngRx modules /todos /pages /to-do main -n, and the module name will be to-dos. So we got an error. Let me check. Oh, there is a typo. There is no folder with the name to-dos, so it should be to-do singular. Run the command again, replacing to-dos with to-do in the path. After that, we will define the routes for the to-do module. It will be similar to Auth Module. Provide the path as empty string and the component will be to-do main component. Then register the route module passing the routes constant to the child method. Now you can see the to-do main component is displaying on the URL /todos. So with that done, now we will create the header part. Here user information will be displayed with logout button. So go to to-do main component.html file in the to-dos module pages folder and create the header component. As you can see, this can get messy very quickly. So it will be a good idea to separate the things to their own component files. So we will create some more components. We will create a header component for user information. Then we will create to-do list component. Here all the to-dos will be displayed as a list. Then we will create a to-do list style component. Here each to-do will be displayed as a part of the list. Then we will create the to-do component. Here will be the actual data that's gonna be displayed on the screen. Now copy these lines and paste it to the to-do header component. After that done, you can provide the app header component in the to-do main component. So as you can see, nothing is changed, but we can manage the code efficiently with this approach. We will also need a to-do form component to enter the to-dos. So create a to-do form component, and we will provide every component inside the to-do main component for better readability. As I just realized that I have created to-do list style component unnecessarily. Instead, we will use to-do component for displaying the to-do data. So delete the to-do list style component. And with that done, let's continue with the video. Whew. Finally, the toughest part is going to complete. Guys, please let me know if you also hate designing things with HTML and CSS like myself. Wouldn't it be great if you get these things designed already? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm very curious to know that I'm not the only one who hate these HTML and CSS things. But you don't worry, the source code of this project will be in the GitHub and the link will be in the description. After all that boring stuff's done, finally we will start to do something real fun from here. Now we will create models folder for user model and to do model. First, we will create the user model interface. The user model will consist of ID, name, email, photo URL or profile picture, and every property will be of type string. Then create a to-do model interface. The to-do model interface will consist of ID of type string, text of type string, and done of type boolean, created of type filled value. For that, import Firebase from Firebase package, then define it using Firebase dot Firestore dot filled value, and the same goes with updated add property. These two property can be used to order the to-do based on when it was created and also when it was last updated. With all that done, now we will create a service file. Type the command NgRx for service, and the path will be modules/auth/service/auth. We will also generate to do service, but we will deal with it later. Now let's go to the auth service file. We will create a private member auth of type Firebase auth, but first we have to define these modules in app module file. Provide the Angular Fire module and Angular Fire Auth module, but first let's import it from Angular Fire/auth. And also Angular Firestore module from Angular Fire/Firestore. Now we will define it here. With that done, now back to service file. Create a private member auth of type Angular Fire auth. After that, we will define three public methods. First, checkAuth method. This method will return an observable of Firebase user. If the user is signed in, it will return the Firebase user, or else it will return null if the user does not exist. We will use the auth.authState method for that. Second, we will create an async method for signing the user with Google. For that, create a constant variable provider and initialize it with new firebase.auth.googleauthprovider from Firebase package. After that, await and call the sign in with redirect method from Angular auth, passing the Google provider. Then wait for the redirect result by using get redirect result method on auth. This will return a promise of Firebase user if the process was completed successfully, and null if something went wrong. We will check if the user is not null. If not null, then we will return the user, else we will return null. Finally, the third method is to sign out the user. This method will return nothing. We will just call the sign out method on auth and await it. With that done, now let's configure the router guards. First, we will deal with signed in guard. So go to signedin.guard.ts file, create a constructor and inject the router and auth service as private member. We will call the checkauth method from auth service and use the pipe operator to modify the result written from the checkauth method. We will use map operator from RxJS operators and pass the user variable received from checkauth method and check if user is null. If user is not null, then return true, else return false. We will also use step operator and pass the result returned from the map operator. If the result is true, then return the requested route, else navigate the user to auth route. Now we will do the same thing with signed out guard. So just copy the constructor thing and import it from the right file, and also copy this return statement and paste it here. We'll just alter the things. Make sure you import the right operator from right file. Just alter the true and false from here and change the /auth route to /today's. With that done, now it's time to create actions for our store. Run the command NgRx and path will be modules auth store action checkout. We also need the success and the failure actions. We will be using functions to define our actions. This will generate checkauth action with success and failure functions, and also repeat the same with sign in with Google action and also for sign out action. Then to handle external interactions, we will generate checkauth effect which will listen to the checkauth action. Run the command NgEffects module /auth/store/effect/checkout. Provide the path to whichever module you want to register this effect. In this case, we will register it to Auth Module. So we will provide the path to Auth Module, which will be modules/auth/auth.module.ts. We also want the success and failure effect for the checkauth action. As you can see, it has been generated to Auth Module. Now do the same for sign in with Google Effects and sign out effect. Then we will create the selectors. To create a selector, run the command ng selector. The path will be module auth store selector and then auth. This will generate the selector and we will set that up in a moment. Now it's time to generate the reducer. To generate the reducer, run the command ng Reducer and the path will be module /auth /store /reducer /auth. Add the success and the failure action. Also we'll be using the functions version of the reducer. With all that done, now let's move to check auth action.ts file. As you can see, most of the code is already generated by the CLI. We just have to make few changes. There are multiple ways to create actions, but this is the recommended way by the NgRx official documentation. Always use create action function to create the action. It requires two parameters. First, the action string. Make sure the string you passed here is unique. It's good practice to include the origin in square brackets and then describe the action, like checkout under brackets and then load checkout. The second parameter is the optional. If you need to pass the data along with the action, you can define it in the prop type function. For load checkout action, we don't need any data to be passed because we don't have the data, and secondly, we will ask the service via effects to check if there is any signed user. If the user exists, it will return the data type user model, the interface we just created few minutes ago. Then effect will dispatch a success action with the data, and if there is no user, then it will return null, and the effect will dispatch a failure action with the error. As I told you, load checkout success action will also have the user data in it. This is how we define the payload. And in checkout failure action, we only need the error as a string. With that done, let's move on to sign in with Google Action. It will be also be the same as checkout. In success action, we will require the user data of type user model, and in failure action, we will require the error as a string. Here we don't require any data for load sign off and sign off success action. Only failure action will have the data for error, which will be of type string. With all the action created, now let's move on to Auth Reducer.ts file. Reducers in NgRx are responsible for handling transition from one state to the next state in our application. Reducer function handle this transition by determining which action to handle based on the actions type. Reducers are pure function in that they produce the same output for the given input. They are without side effects and handle each state transition synchronously. Each reducer function takes the latest action dispatched, the current state, and determines whether to return a newly modified state or the original state. There are few consistent part of every pieces of the state managed by the reducer. as interface or type that define the shape of the state, the arguments including the initial state or the current state, and the current action, the function that handles state changes for their associated actions. First, we will define the interface of our auth store. This is what our store will contain within itself. The state will contain user property of type user model or null if no user is present initially. Also loading property to show loading screen, and error property of type string or null to display the error. After that, we will initialize the initial state of our store. This is required because it sets the state to initial state if store is initialized and no action is passed. So initialize it with user property being null, loading being false, and error to null. The reducer function's responsibility is to handle the state transition in an immutable way. Provide the generic to create reducer function as state, action. Now we will use on function to tell the reducer what to do when certain action is received. The on function requires two parameters. First one is the action and second parameter is the function which returns the state. So on load check auth action, provide the function, we have access to the state and the action received in the function, so we will return the state in a immutable way. Open the parentheses and then curly braces. We will spread the state here by using spread operator and also setting the loading property to false. Now on load check auth success section, we also require the data as we have access to the state and the action. We will provide it in a function parameter and return the state by spreading the current state with spread operator and also setting the loading property to false, and finally setting the user property with the user data received with the action. And for the failure action, we will return the state while setting the error property to the error we received from the state. Rest all the cases are similar, so just have a look and you will understand it. Now let's move on to selectors. Selectors are pure function used to obtain the slices of the store state. NgRx store provides a few helper functions for optimize this selection. When using the create selector and create feature selector function, NgRx store keeps the track of the latest argument in which your selector function is invoked. Because selectors are pure function, the last result can be returned when the argument match without re-invoking your selector's function. This can provide performance benefit, particularly with selectors that perform expensive computation. First, create a constant auth feature selector and initialize it with create feature selector function, providing the type state as we have defined the state as state, and pass the selector string. We will pass the auth feature key variable. This is to select the state within the store. Now we will export three constants, each for each property in the store. First, get the user, initialize it with create selector method. This takes auth feature selector and a function returning the state. Here we will return the user property. Similarly, we will do for getting the loading property and the error property. With all the selectors done, now move on to effects. Effects are an RxJS powered side effect model for store. Effects uses stream to provide new sources of action to reduce state based on external interaction such as network call, WebSocket messages, and time-based events. In a service-based Angular application, components are responsible for interacting with external resources directly through services. Instead, effects provide a way to interact with those services and isolate them from the component. Effects are where you handle the tasks such as fetching the data, long-running tasks that produce multiple events, and other external interactions where your component does not need explicitly knowledge of these interactions. The key concepts are effects isolate side effects from the component, allowing for more pure component that select state and dispatch action. Effects are long-running service that listen to an observable of every action dispatched from the store. Effects filter those actions based on the type of action they are interested in. This is done by using an operator. Effects perform tasks which are synchronous or asynchronous and return a new action. To isolate side effect from your component, you must create an effect class to listen for the event and perform the task. Effects are injectable services class with distinct part. An injectable action service that provide an observable stream of all action dispatched after the latest state has been reduced. Metadata is attached to the observable stream using the effect function. The metadata is used to register the stream that are subscribed to the store. Any action returned from the effect stream is then dispatched back to the store. Actions are filtered using a pipeable off type operator. The off type operator takes one or more action type as an argument to filter on which action to act upon. Effects are subscribed to the store observable. Services are injected into effect to interact with external API and handle stream. Now inject the action from NgRx effects and Auth Service from Auth Service and also router from Angular router package. And all these members will be private. Then we will create a check auth effect as a public member. This effect is listening for all the dispatch action through the action stream, but is only interested in load check auth event. Using the off type operator, the string of an action is then flattened and mapped into new observable using the merge map operator. The Auth Service checkout method returns an observable that maps the user into a new action on success and error if something goes wrong. The action is dispatched to the store where it can handle by reducer when the state change is needed. We will also set another effect for success action. This effect will not dispatch any action, but rather it will navigate the user to to-do page. So we will set the configuration and set the dispatch property to false. This effect will also listen to all the action but interested in load check auth success action which will be dispatched from previous effect. We will use the tap operator and then we will use router variable to navigate the user to to-do page. And the route guard will handle the rest. If the user exists, then it will allow the user to go to to-do page or it will navigate the user to auth page. Go to sign in with Google effect. It will be similar to checkout effect, but this time the sign in with Google method on Auth Service will return a promise. So we will use merge map with a async function. So we will use then and catch block to dispatch the success or the failure action. This also have an effect that will route the user to to-do page on success login. With that done, now let's go to sign out effect. It will be similar to sign in with Google effect. So we will use then and catch block for dispatching success and failure action. This will also have an effect that will route the user to home page on successful sign out. With all that done, now let's connect our project to Firebase. So open your browser and go to the link firebase.google.com. Then click on go to console button. It will ask for signing in with Google account. So make sure you have the Google account, or you can create a new Google account. After that, click on add project, give a project a name and continue, and also continue. Select the default account for Firebase and create a project. The create project will take some time, and in the meantime install the Firebase tool package globally on your system. Run the command in your terminal. You may need to provide the sudo privileges. So the command is npm I -g firebase -tools at latest. After the project has successfully created, click on continue. After that, add a new web app, then give it a name, and then click register app. It will give you some configurations. Now just copy the Firebase config section and then paste it into environment.ts file in environment folder. After that, register the Auth Store as a feature store module in Auth Module. Provide the Auth feature key and the reducer function. Also provide the Auth Service, signed in guard and signed out guard in the providers array. After that, go to login component.ts file and inject the store as a private member and provide the interface of the state we created in reducer function. Create a sign in with Google function. We will dispatch the sign in with Google action from this function. And And also on init method, we will dispatch the load check auth action. To check if the user already exists, then effect will navigate the user to to-dos page. No need to sign in again. With that done, now go to login component.html file and remove the router link. And by using event binding, we will bind the click event to the component sign in with Google method, where it will dispatch the Google sign in action. With that done, now let's go back to app component login component.ts file. Create a public member auth loading. It will be an observable of type boolean, and then on init method we will use store.select method and pass the get auth loading selector, as this method will return an observable of type boolean. We will assign the function to the auth loading variable. And this is showing error because in selector file we are returning the user property instead of loading property. So we will change it, and also change it from get auth error selector, change it to error property. With that done, save the file. Now in HTML template, if auth loading is true, we will disable the button. And add the text loading when auth is loading. We will use async pipe to subscribe to the observable. Now with that done, save the file. Now go to Auth Module.ts file and register the store as a feature store. And provide the Auth Service and both the guards in providers array. Also register the check auth effect and sign out effect using effects module or feature method. The error is because we haven't initialized the Angular Fire module with Firebase config. So use initialize app method in Angular Fire module and provide the Firebase config from environment files. This is still showing an error because we haven't enabled the authentication service in Firebase. And also at this point we haven't enabled the Google sign in Firebase authentication. So let's go to the Firebase. Go to Authentication tab and enable the service. Now go to sign in method and enable the Google sign in method. So with that done, let's try it again. First reload the page. As you can see, it is working. We are also navigated to the tools page. So now we are done with Auth Module. Now it's time to start with Todo Module. First, we will set up the Todo Service file. So go to Todo Service. It will be inside the Todo Module service folder. First, create a private nullable variable user. The not sign denotes it can be null explicitly, and it will be of type Firebase user. So import Firebase from Firebase package. Then inject the Angular Fire Auth and Angular Firestore as a private member in the constructor. And in the constructor body, subscribe to the auth state method from Angular Fire and get the user and assign it to this dot user. After that, we'll create method for all CRUD operations. Let's start with reading from Firestore. As I told you at the beginning of this course that we will listen to the real-time changes to Firestore, now it's the time to create the function. The getToDo method will return an observable of type todo model array. We will return a function which returns an observable of todo model array. We will use Angular Firestore collection method and provide the type as todo model. I will tell you why in a bit and pass the location of the collection. In this case, it will be users/user ID/todo collection, which means every user have their own separated todo collection. And then in second parameter, we will get the reference to this collection and we will order the document in descending order by created at key. This will put the latest created todo on the top. This is important. We will use snapshot changes method instead of get method to listen to the real-time changes to the Firestore. As this return an observable, we will use pipe operator to modify the string. We will also use map operator to get hold of query snapshot, which returned from the snapshot changes method. Then we will return query snapshot.map method, which returns an array. But first, we will check if query snapshot is not null. So using map operator, we will loop over every document in query snapshot. Then we will create a temporary variable data and assign it doc.payload.doc.data for ease of use. Now we will create a todo variable of type todo model. Assign the ID with doc.payload.doc.id and rest will be suggested by the IntelliSense. This is why we provided the type of the collection method. After that, return the todo variable. With that, we have completed the todo method, which will listen to the real-time changes to the Firestore todo document. Now we will create add to do method. It will receive a to do title of type string, and as it is a asynchronous function, it will return promise void. Now to add the data to Firestore, type Firestore the user collection, and the document ID will be the user UID, and we will access it from the user we created at the top, and make sure ID is not null. And then we will go to the sub collection to do's and use the doc method, and also to set the data, create an object, initialize the title with to do title we received, then will be false for now. Created will be the server timestamp, so type firebase dot firestore dot firestore dot build value dot server timestamp and instantiate. Same will go with the updated property. Now here Firestore will generate the document ID automatically, but if you want you can set it here manually. For that, import a package UUID and get the v4 method. So type UUID, get the v4 as UUID v4. Now at doc method, provide the parameter with UUID v4 and initialize it. Now this function will add the document to the Firestore. After that, we will create a update to do method. This method will receive a to do of type to do model, and this function will return promise void, as this is asynchronous function. Similar to the add to do method, we will go to the users collection and the user document. We will access the ID via the user variable and go to the sub collection to do's, and we will access the to do document by to do.id property, and we will select the update method, and we will just negate the to do done property and also the updated add property. It will be same as firebase dot firestore dot field value dot server timestamp and initialize it. And also delete to do function will receive to do of to do model and also return promise void. This will be a simple one, as we have to locate the document and run the delete method. So as usual, get the user document, go to the to do sub collection, select the document by document ID, the doc method, access the document ID by the to do we received, and run the delete method. With that done, now we will create some actions. As I have explained the things earlier in detail, so I'll be going fast here. So we will create a to do in a to do module store folder, and inside that action folder, and the action name will be get to do. We will require the failure and success action, and we will use functions. Similarly, create add to do action and update to do action, and also delete to do action. Now let's go to add to do action. The load add to do action will require the data of type to do model, because we are going to add the to do to the Firestore. So the to do will be of type to do model. The success action does not require any data, but the failure action requires an error. Now we will go to delete to do. The load delete to do requires the data, and only failure requires the error string. Similarly, get to do. Here we don't require the load get to do's, but in success action we require the to do's as a to do model array and also the error string. And in the update method, we require the data for the load update to do action, and for error action we only require the error string. After that we will generate the effect. So we will generate the get to do effect. Register this effect in the Todo module, and we will use functions. Also generate the add to do effect. Register this at todo modules.ts file and use functions. And update to do effect, and also delete to do effect. After that, let's go to add to do effect. As I just remember that load add to do effect receives to do model, but change it to do text, and it will be of type string. As our service receives the title property, it is string. So as before, inject the Todo Service and create a get to do effect. Initialize it with create effect function, and this will listen to all the actions dispatched by the store, but we are interested in load get to do effect, and we will convert the string using merge map and call the get to do service from Todo Service, as that returns an observable. So we will use type operator and then map over the to dos. After that we will dispatch a get to do success action. If anything goes wrong, we will dispatch the failure action, and we have to wrap the action with auth operator to convert it to observable. With that done, now let's move on to, and I just realized that we are in wrong effect, so we will copy this thing and go to get to do effect and paste everything here, and import everything which is required. With that done, let's go back to add to do effect, and we will listen on add load add to do action, and we will change the method to add to do, and as that will return a promise, we will use then and catch block to process the data accordingly. So it returns void. So in then block we'll just dispatch the success action, and if anything goes wrong we will dispatch in catch block, providing the error. Now update and delete method will be similar, so we'll copy everything and import the things accordingly. So we'll be listening on load update to do action, and we will call the update to do method, providing the to do. We'll first change it to the action. It will be not new to do, it will be just to do. So after that success, we will dispatch update to do success action, and if error, then we'll dispatch the failure action, providing the error. We'll also copy and paste it to delete to do effects and import everything accordingly. After that done, now we will generate the reducer. So as before, type the command for reducer, and we will also generate the selector for to-do module. So type the command as usual. Now let's go to the to-do reducer. This is going to be a bit tricky as we are going to use entities for our to-do state. So first we will change the state and rename to to-do state. After that, we will extend the interface with entity state of type to-do model and provide the remaining state, like loading will be of type boolean and error will be of type string or null. After that, we will create an entity adapter. So create to-do adapter, it will be of type entity adapter of type to-do model, and assign it using create entity adapter of type to-do model and instantiate it. After that, we will create a default state of type to-do state. The ID will be empty array, the entities will be empty object, loading will be false for now, error will be null. Now we will use the to-do adapter, the get initial state method, and pass the default state to get the initial state. And after that, we will configure the reducer function. It will be same as before we did in Auth Reducer. So follow the tutorial. Here success action is different though. We will use to do adapter dot select all method dot select all method and pass the action dot type and spread the state and set the loading to false. Rest it will be similar for all the actions we did in Auth Module, Auth Reducer, sorry. So I'll be fast forwarding rest of the actions configuration. After that, we will go to Todo Selector file. We will create the feature selector, Todo feature selector, and instantiate it with create feature selector of type Todo state and passing the key. We will create the get Todo selector and instantiate the create selector method. It takes the Todo feature selector and we will return all the to-dos by using Todo adapter, get selectors and select all method. Similarly, we'll use the get loading and get error as exactly we did in Auth Selector file. With all that done, now go to component dot header component dot ts file. Here we will inject the auth store as a store and provide the state, and on init method. But first we will declare the user variable which can be nullable. So and it will be of type observable and user model. In ng on init method, we will dispatch an action load checkout and we will assign the user using the get auth selector method. So with that done, go to header.html file and replace the whatever it was written before with the template, and we will use the async pipe to subscribe to the user value and use the name property, and in the second one we will use the email property. And for profile we will use the property binding and provide the photo URL of the user. As you can see, these things are working perfectly. Image is showing, the name is also showing here, and also the email. Now let's go to the component file and add a sign out function. Here we will dispatch a load sign out action to sign the user out, and we will assign it to the button, and using event binding we will use the sign out function here. With that done, now move to to-do list component file. Here we will also inject the to-do store and assign the to-do state. We will also create a to-do variable which will be observable of type to-do model, and it will be an array. And on NgInit method, we will first dispatch the load get to do action, and then assign the variable using the selector get to do's. After that, we will go to the to-do list component HTML file, remove the extra app to do component, as app to do component will be the child component of to do list style component. We will use add input decorator to provide the data from parent to the child. Here type add input parenthesis, it will be a public, so we can access it from HTML file, and it will be of type to do model. Now go to to-do list HTML file, remove these extra lines. We will use ng4 directory to loop over the to-dos, and as we have provided the add input method directly, we can inject the to-do by event binding, property binding, and assign the to-do. This is how the to-do component will receive the data from the parent. With that done, now let's go to to-do form. Now in to-do form component.ts file, first create a form variable to-do form. It will be of type form group, and inject the form builder and also the to-do store, and provide the to-do state. On NgOnInit method, initialize the to-do form with form builder dot group method. Here we only need one property, so we will set the text to an empty string, and also validators that it is required. And on submit, we will dispatch the add to do action and provide the title or text in this case. But first we will check if the form is valid. If it's valid, then we'll create a constant, and using the form to do form, dot get method provide the key as a string, and dot value we will get the value of the form as a string. After that, if the text dot length is not equal to 0, then we will dispatch load add to do action and pass the text. Now go to the to do form.html file, and in the form tag apply the form group directive, and assign the to do form here. This is showing error because we haven't imported the reactive form module and form module from Angular forms. So import it here in to do module, and the error will go away. As you can see, it has gone. Now assign the to do form variable to form group. And make sure it is public so that we can access it in here. Now assign the to do form. Also in input tag, assign the form control name to the text, and also in form tag bind the event NgSubmit and assign the submit function. By this, every time user hit enter, the form will be submitted and the action will be dispatched. After that, we'll go to the to-do component, and in to-do component ts file, we'll add two methods here, update to do and delete to do, to dispatch the update action and the delete action. And let's go to to-do.html file, and we will apply the text removing the Angular PWA to do app and bind the to do.text property, and in the button element we will bind the click event and assign the delete to do function. And to that we will bind the click event and assign the update method, and in the delete button we'll assign the click event to the delete method. Now we will inject the to-do store here, providing the to-do stick, and on update to-do method we will dispatch the update action and also provide the to-do we received here as an input from the parent component. And also in the delete method, we will dispatch the delete action and provide the to do we received here. Now with that done, let's try to add the to do. It is not working, it seems. This is because we haven't initialized the Firestore database in our Firebase project. So now go to Firebase console and go to Cloud Firestore and click on Get Started button or Create Database. We will start this in production mode. We will be setting up the security rule in a bit. So with that done, click on Next. Leave it to the defaults and enable the Firestore. This will take some time, so wait for it. After that, go to the rules and wait for it to load. Now comment out the default rule, as we are going to make it more secure. Type match and provide the path. It will be users, the document ID, and the sub collection will be to do's with to do ID. Here we only want to allow read if the requested user ID is equal to the document ID of the user. By this, we will prevent the user from accessing the to-dos of any another user. And the same goes to write policy. So with that done, now let's test our rules. So we will type the location users 123 will be the document ID, to-dos will be the sub collection, and 345 will be the to-dos ID. If I run it, it will show an error because I'm not authenticated. Even if I'm authenticated, it will show an error until and unless I provide the right user ID, and it should be same with the document ID. As you can see, now the test passes for get. This will also run for delete. But first let's check if no user ID is provided. As you can see, we are not allowed, which is good. And if the user ID is provided and it is matching the document ID, then it will be allowed. So we are done with the security rules. So now let's add the to do and check if it's working. This seems interesting as this is not working. Uh, we forgot to register the store module in the to do module. So let's first register it as a feature module. Here registered the using store module dot feature method. Provide the to do feature key and the to do reducer. Also provide the to do service and signed in guard and signed out guard in the providers array. The error was in add to do method in to do service file. There was a typo, as I told you before. This is why it is not displaying the to do's here. So it took me a very long time to debug. So don't worry about that. We will fix it in a moment. But before that, go to the app module.ts file and register the to do store as a feature store. Provide the to do feature key and the to do reducer. And for effects, just provide the get to do effect. And in providers array, provide the to do service. Then go to app routing.module.ts file. Here we will use the can activate property of the route and assign the but first we will assign the in the to do module routes can activate property and we will provide the signed in card. And in auth module we will also use the can activate property and assign the signed out guard. As you can see, if I go to /auth route, I'm routed back to today's page. and if I log out, I'm routed to home page, and then I try to go to this page. I'm routed to login page, which is good. Now go to Todo Service file and delete this line, and it will start working. As I told you, the problem was with the typo. Here I was ordering it by created at property, but the spelling was wrong. That's why it was not showing. As you can see, now it is displaying and working perfectly. So at this time, if it's working for you also, then definitely like the video, subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. Remove the unnecessary things. Now go to Todo Component.html file. Here we will dynamically set the background color using the done property and ng class directive. We will check if the done is true or not. If done is true, then we will apply the green color, else it will be yellow color. Now let's check if it's working. As you can see, it is working perfectly. Now with that done, now we will design the home page. With that done, now finally we will add the PWA support for this app. For that, run the command ng-add at angular PWA at latest. First, we will download the icon for our app. I generally use flat icon for the icons, but you can choose your own icon. I like this one, so I will download it. And paste it to the asset folder. As the PW has installed, we'll apply the image in the login component. After that, go to the dev tool and select Lighthouse. We will generate report for PWA. As you can see, PWA is not supported in this app. So now let's configure for PWA support. To my surprise, rename this file with .json extension and provide it in a angular.json file in the asset array. Now remove all the icon but leave the 512 into 512 and assign to the icon we downloaded. Also, you can give the name anything you want. I will give AP to do app. You can leave the theme color and background color to the default, but I will change it to something different. But first, we'll change the scope and start URL from // to just /. I will copy, paste this code from, it is basically a green color. Now with that done, now we'll delete the icon folder and go to the main index.html file. We'll give the title to AP to do and replace the tab icon with the icon we have downloaded. We'll also provide the manifest file, as that's what gonna do. Describe the PWA property. And we will also have to apply the Apple Touch icon for the PWA to work properly. And we will link the manifest file to manifest.webmanifest.json. And in the body, after the app root component, provide the no script and write please enable JavaScript. And to apply the dark theme, apply the class dark to the body component. Now this is how we apply the dark theme. First I will select the dark theme of my system so that we can see the changes and apply the dark theme. Now, just for ease of use, go to Todo Component.ts file, and after dispatching the load add to do, we'll reset the form. With that done, we have completed everything. Now it's time to build the project. You can delete those files. Now run the command ng build -- prod, and now we will initialize the Firebase project here so that we can deploy our web app to the Firebase hosting. So type the command first clear it, then type the command Firebase init. But make sure you are logged first. So type the command Firebase login, go to the browser and select the appropriate account and login. Now type Firebase init. Type this. We just want hosting, and we will use existing project, and we will set it up as a single page application. At this time our application has built, so we will go to the dist folder and copy its content, copy all of its contents, make sure the manifest.json file exists, and we will paste it to the public folder. And but first enable the hosting here in the Firebase console. After that, open the terminal. Now run the command Firebase deploy -- only hosting. This will deploy our web app to the Firebase hosting. As you can see, it has been deployed. Let's refresh this page and open the link. As you can see, we have fully deployed our application. But first check the PWA support. As you can see, only one thing is missing. So go there, go to index.html file and add a meta tag of with the name theme, I guess. Name theme icon color, and content will be the theme we copied, colored here. We copy and we will paste it here and build the project again. The build process is complete. As before, copy the content of the dist folder and paste it in a public folder and rerun the command, deploy command. As the app has been deployed, now let's go to the URL and again check for PWA support. Now generate the report. As you can see, we have scored 100 in PWA and you can see the install button. So install it and we are done. Let's log in. It's working. Let's add some to do. Update is also working. Adding to do is also working. Delete is also working. Logging out also working. So basically everything. So thank you very much for watching this video. And if you want to win those t-shirts, then definitely like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also share this video as much as you can, as I will be picking up the winner at live stream 20 days after this video. So definitely subscribe to the channel and keep an eye on my live stream. So I hope you learned at least something, and if you stuck somewhere, then definitely let me know in the comment section down below. I will be more than happy to help you out, and the rest of the details are in the description, so definitely check it out. Thank you very much. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and more video like this one is coming, so definitely subscribe. Thank you very much.